Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson misses practice with a back injury. His availability is in doubt. Will he play on Saturday? We'll soon find out.
And I'm Kadri Ismail, Super Bowl champion. Listen, regardless if Lamar plays or not, the other guys, this is do or die time. They all need to play, and they need to play their best against the Packers.
And I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens, and there's pressure mounting on John Harbaugh. The playoffs, they are in doubt, and there are a lot of questions about where this team needs to go moving forward, whether they make the playoffs or not. Locked On Ravens Squad show starts right now.
Rise and shine, it's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad show starts now.
What is going on, Ravens flock? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Ravens Squad show. This is Sam Njoku, joined as always with Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail, talking Ravens football twice a week. Today on Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Well, now it's 8:15 p.m. Because we have a special pre-Christmas edition of the show, as Christmas Eve is right around the corner. Happy holidays to all those watching around the globe, especially over here in the Ravens Nation. Also, we have the show after Saturday. Hopefully the Ravens pick up a W and put some pressure on the Pittsburgh Steelers to get things done against the Browns. I want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. The Ravens have a big game against the Packers upcoming. It's lose or go home time. It's pretty much the playoffs with a little sprinkle of help needed from the Cleveland Browns. But if the Ravens are to get it done, they'll probably need Lamar Jackson, who was absent from practice today. We'll touch on what that means for this team and maybe a Tyler Huntley special edition on Saturday if he's unable to play. We'll talk about John Harbaugh. A lot of pressure on John Harbaugh, especially after that gaffe performance on Sunday against those Patriots. We'll talk about whether or not he's on the hot seat. We'll preview that Packers game as well as recap that Patriots contest where the Ravens fell after having a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. Terrible, terrible times if you're a Ravens fan. But let's start with the obvious. Lamar Jackson misses practice on Tuesday. Back injury kept him out of the second half of the contest against the Patriots. Wonder if he's going to play or not. We'll see. Kevin, you got the news like everybody else. Lamar Jackson missed practice. Not too surprising considering he's missed the first practice of each week, dating back to his availability following the leg injury. What are you thinking about this time around? It looks like he didn't play at all in the second half. This isn't a time where he played the whole full game and then had some rest on Wednesday. This is the time where he didn't play half of the game. Now on Tuesday, I believe his availability is certainly in doubt for Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, this time feels different than the last month and a half for Lamar, where, clearly that back contusion was significant enough to hold him out of the game, even with the Toradol shot and, him trying to work back from it. And, I luckily have never had to deal with a back injury before, but I saw a very interesting post on social media from someone that said, it's very evident who has dealt with a back injury and who has not. So I'm curious because I genuinely don't know, like, just how much a back contusion or something like this can impact availability, just movement in general. And I know that sometimes backs, when you're talking about discs or whatnot or other areas of it, can be very hard to move. It's very tender and ginger there, I guess. But with Lamar, I'm not sure because I think it'll tell us a lot over the next 2 days. I'm not going to react to, again, the first practice of the week, but it doesn't feel like it has in the past where he's had the foot or the ankle or the knee or whatever. And he's like, oh, he's a little banged up, but he's healthy enough to play. I mean, this was an injury that knocked him out of a must-win game for the Ravens. And it was bad enough to where he couldn't come in the game, even after trying essentially everything, in my opinion, that he could, or at least most of, I guess, what he could to go back out there. So I thought Tyler Huntley played well enough, but as A1 said, could be getting Tyler Huntley versus Malik Willis, which is exactly what the NFL hoped for when they flexed this game, by the way.
I know what a back feels like. It is absolutely not fun. It is debilitating when it's a contusion because, especially for Lamar, just from a quarterbacking, throwing the ball aspect, your rotation, you're dependent upon that quadratus lumborum area where I'm imagining that is what the contusion area is located around that muscle grouping. And you, the actual art of running is even going to be in question, which has already been in question this entire season for him. So it just compounds things that he's dealing with his back contusion. Then you're talking about a guy that now he plays well in the cold, or he doesn't look like, oh my God, it's cold, I can't do it. I do know he likes to stay incredibly warm all the time. So you factor that in when it comes to Lamar being out there and it is frigid weather and you have a back and you don't want that thing to lock up. So there's a lot that goes on. Whomever his assistant is on the sideline, I don't know the young man's name, but he does an amazing job of trying to help him stay warm and, just being attentive to what Lamar needs. I mean, I would try to be as fancy with the spices as I can, trying to figure out, what heating packs or whatever I can do to make sure that Lamar is okay to perform. So there's a lot there. Make no mistake about it. And this is a major injury that can really put him in doubt of playing.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, I've dealt with a back injury before. I know people that dealt with back injuries before. Don't know the severity of that contusion, but you can't do anything when your back is hurt. I mean, in any stretch of the imagination, you got people from all walks of life who deal with back injuries as well. It is debilitating to the point where they're out there reaching out for other means of comfort. Toradol didn't cut it for Lamar, which tells you how serious that injury is. Anybody who knows anything about Toradol, it's anti-inflammatory, so very potent stuff. If he's not able to go out there, I'm not sure in 6 days rest he's going to be able to compete. Hopefully he does. We don't know. Who knows? Maybe we just don't know what happens. But based on the way you saw him in the locker room on Sunday and the way hasn't practiced as of yet, leaves it in doubt, which begs the question, how confident are you that Tyler Huntley can get the job done, Q? We saw Tyler Huntley come in. He did okay. He wasn't able to do exactly what Lamar does. Doesn't strike the fear that Lamar does, but he does have a similar skill set in what he's able to do on the football field. Do you think the Ravens have a chance to maybe recoup some of this talent on the offensive side of the ball with the Tyler Huntley as opposed to Lamar?
You're asking whether or not Tyler Huntley can go in there and do what is necessary to get a victory?
Yeah.
Yeah, he better. Remember him and John, they were text messaging each other saying, hey, I'm working out, I'm ready to play, what's up? And John like, hey, you ready? What's up? Well, what's up? we ready now. All right, bro. You've done it before. Let's do it again. And whatever you need, like we ready for you, brother. I think Tyler will be ready. I think he'll be composed. I think that it'll be a challenge. Sure, he's not Lamar Jackson, but who is? He's one of one. Tyler has his own skill sets, and Tyler is technically he took care of business against Chicago. Chicago was a pretty good team and still is a good team. So I think Tyler would do well. And they don't have Micah Parsons, although that defense, they can tackle really well. But I think if you, Ravens, look at what the Chicago Bears did, like they eventually got to the point where they wore down that defense and they made plays in the running game, which then spurred on opportunities in the passing attack. And I think this is a game where all hands on deck. If Lamar Jackson can't go, let's go out there and ball out. Period. End of discussion.
Yeah, I thought Tyler played really well in that game on Sunday, and his job going out there was to put the Ravens in position, not turn the ball over, not put the ball in harm's way. His stats won't tell you that in terms of yardage, but yards are kind of overrated anyway. I think, the fact that he went 9 of 10 and he essentially was asked to be a game manager, and that's what he did. And he has come in big spots for Lamar in the past. Obviously, he is the owner of the Chicago Bears, so that's very nice for Tyler. Hopefully, we can upgrade that title if Lamar doesn't play to owner of the NFC North, and he just loves playing against the NFC North. I guess that's the next goal here, but it is a downgrade. I'm not trying to say that Tyler, like you said, Lamar's 101, and I'm not expecting him to go out there and beat Lamar Jackson, but I am curious to kind of see how that offense changes in terms of is Huntley going to run the ball more if he is out there. I would expect the Ravens to put a heavy dose on the ground and try to run with that. Honestly, I've been kind of thinking about it after the game ended, and I think John Harbaugh might want to send a message after what happened on Sunday. And, he might say, I don't care if the run game isn't working. You're not going to question me and say Derrick Henry wasn't on the field. He's going to get 50 carries out of 55 plays. But I think that, yes, Tyler Huntley has a chance to win this game, especially because, Green Bay is very beat up on both sides of the ball. And, even defensively, not having Micah Parsons out there is a very big loss for them, along with some of the other guys that they've lost. And, it's going to be tough. Green Bay's still a good team, even with the injuries they suffered. They obviously are going to be very mad after what happened against Chicago on last Saturday and the fact that they lost that game. So, two very motivated teams playing for playoffs and seeding and whatever you want to call it. But I think Tyler can go out there and win the game. It's just a matter of, how does everybody else step up?
It'll be up to him. It's going to be up to Tyler to get it done. Maybe. There's still 2 more practices to go, but I would be very surprised if Lamar goes out there and plays this week. I'd be surprised if he plays next week, considering how back injuries are. So something to keep an eye on. I wonder, who do you think, and we're going to get to the previews later on in the show, but I do want to say, I see this message from Tanya and just brought up, where's Bailey lately? Who needs to step up on the outside for Tyler Huntley to have success? Someone who hasn't performed very well this season. There's been loads and loads of guys. Burrs owned those frauds, says A1. So there's been loads of guys who haven't really performed well this year. Kevin, who do you think needs to step up the most in this contest who hasn't been there for Lamar Jackson this season for the Ravens to have a chance to win?
Well, I think it's the offensive line, number one. And yes, Rashad Bateman hasn't had a great year. Isaiah Likely hasn't had a great year in terms of the stats and the production that they've had. You pay a guy essentially $12 million a year and he's had multiple donut games. That's tough. But to me, it still all starts up front. You have to start there, in my opinion. And again, I thought the Patriots game was their best game of the season as a collective unit, especially in the ground game, opening up holes, getting Derrick Henry to the second level, being physical and blowing guys off the ball. Certainly wasn't perfect, but again, where's the bar? It's on the floor. And I thought that the Ravens had a great game relative to where the bar was and played really well overall. So, it has to be on the O-line. Obviously, the guard spots, with Voorhees going down with the foot injury, who, by the way, one of his grades on Sunday was a 7.7 from PFF, which is quite literally abysmal. Emory Jones and John Harbaugh didn't really seem that pleased with Emory Jones, if we're being honest, and his comments about him was kind of just like, he was all right. He's a young player. He said he was excited for the, I don't know.
Yeah.
You can tell Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees are John Harbaugh's guys. So if Voorhees is available, my guess is he will be out there based off of those comments. But to me, yes, we can all admit Rashad hasn't had a good season and Isaiah hasn't had a good season. And, Mark hasn't really had a good season outside of the touchdowns. I think that it has to be on the O-line first, the receivers second, and, tight ends have to get a little more involved too. I'd argue Charlie Collar's been their best tight end this year.
Hands down.
For real.
The consistency, the way he's been able to block. You ain't gonna find any argument there from me. I think he just hands down. Yeah, the guy. Solid.
Yeah, there you go.
Solid all the way around. And I know I'm a huge Charlie Kohler fan to begin with, but bottom line, I just think that he's solid. Just he's the real deal. I think that bigger picture, when you look at if Lamar can't go, I think it's the play calling. I think it's Todd Monken, making sure that Tyler has a package that he can do very confidently from start to finish. That's the big one. That's the elephant in the room. Can he go out there and play, knowing where guys are going to be, uh, getting it out there on time? But to KO's point, if your offensive line doesn't come ready to play, I mean, yeah, you could run Derrick Henry, and then all of a sudden, it's 3rd and 5, and the ball gets batted down. So therefore, you got to punt, or it's 2nd and 2, and now you get a free runner, and now all of a sudden it's a tackle for loss, and so now you're in 3rd and 7, and now you're like, oh boy. So it's little stuff like that from an offensive line being uh what do we call it, on schedule, ahead of the chains, all those cliches. That to me is where you're going to see the biggest, okay, let's do this type of thing, for Tyler being in there and guys supporting your backup quarterback with their play.
Yeah, I'm confident. I'm feeling confident with Huntley being out there. Again, he's not going to make the crazy wow play that, Lamar Jackson has made in the past. Maybe not so much this year, but in the past. And so we'll see what happens. But I think that, he'll get the job done. We'll talk more about that Packers matchup later on the show when we come back. We'll touch on John Harbaugh. I mean, he's probably, most people will say he's the reason why the Ravens fell short in that contest against the Patriots, not doing what he had to do to put Derrick Henry in that contest when no one was able to stop him. I mean, nobody. So we'll talk about what's going on with John Harbaugh. Is he really in the hot seat, or just a reaction to a really bad loss on Sunday? We'll touch on it here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, the receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. What's going on, Ravens flock? We're back here with the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, talking about the Ravens as they get set for the second to last game of the season on the road against the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field. Ravens have a tough assignment ahead of themselves. They have to make sure they beat the Packers and hope upon hope that the Cleveland Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers the following day. So if the Ravens want that game to be meaning anything, they have to get the job done against those Green Bay Packers. If they don't, the seat that John Harbaugh is in could be hot, if not hot already. That's what we're going to talk about here. John Harbaugh, locally, the talk of him having to exit has been the topic of conversation. Nationally, not so much. Well, when you lose in primetime the way he did, you're going to get some people talking. It's been all over, ESPN, CBS, wherever you looked, sports nationally. That's where you'll find conversations about whether or not John Harbaugh has coached his last season in Baltimore. But is he really in the hot seat when all things are considered? Is this really going to be the last year for John Harbaugh unless a miraculous turnaround happens in the final 2 weeks of the season? Kevin, I'll start with you. Is John Harbaugh, in your opinion, on the hot seat now? Or are you just assuming Steve Bisciotti is going to give him one last shot the following season and maybe more shots to come?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely. I think two things can be true. I think he's absolutely on the hot seat, and I also think what Steve Bisciotti's decision ultimately will tell us a lot about how Steve Bisciotti's mindset is. Does he want to be complacent, or does he want to win? He was very adamant that he wants to win. He wants to win now, but keeping John Harbaugh to me would signal the opposite. It would signal complacency. And again, we've talked about it, the three of us, and when you both have come on the main Locked On Ravens show, it's, to me, John Harbaugh has stayed in Baltimore as long as he has because of his regular season success, where when Lamar Jackson's been healthy, that team is going to win 12, 13, 14 games and get in the playoffs at least and give themselves a shot at least, even though the playoff success has not been there in the Lamar Jackson era, unfortunately. And also his ability to connect with players and his ability to have reshaped essentially his coaching identity over the course of his coaching tenure in Baltimore. And when you lose both those things, and to me, I don't know what goes on in that locker room, but it feels like the messaging is falling flat this season. And when the regular season success isn't there, well, what else is there? Like, what else does John Harbaugh have when you've cycled through coordinators at both offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator? And I get it, Mike McDonald left for Seattle, but you moved on from Marty Mornhinweg in 2018. You moved on from Greg Roman. You moved on from Don Martindale. And, what's next? Chris Horton is going to get fired and they're going to bring a new special teams guy. Like, again, how many times do you go back to the well? How many different iterations of this team do you need to see with the same results and some of the same fatal flaws popping up before you say, okay, maybe it's just time? And it's a conversation a lot of teams are going through right now. Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, and that was a lot louder before Pittsburgh started playing the way they are right now. But, Tomlin in Pittsburgh, McDermott in Buffalo, I've heard it with, Bowles in Tampa Bay. Like, there are these coaches that are, in my opinion, good coaches, but sometimes it just plateaus out. And isn't that the same thing that happened with Greg Roman? But the problem with that situation is that Greg Roman probably should have been let go a year or two before he was ultimately let go by Baltimore. This is a loyal organization. And again, I've said many times on this show that I'd rather have a loyal organization than a non-loyal organization, because when you're a non-loyal organization, you get into a lot more trouble because guys just don't trust you and don't want to come play for you. But when you are loyal to a fault like Baltimore is, a lot of the time it's good. But in key moments like this, it's tough. And, Hugh and I literally just talked. If you haven't checked out, if you're here with us live, you haven't heard tomorrow's show, because guess what? It's not out because it's not tomorrow. But if you haven't checked out tomorrow's show yet, maybe you're watching after the fact, listening after the fact. Hugh and I just talked about this, where this is not a young team. John Harbaugh's not a young head coach. These guys have been there and done that before. And the fact that we're still seeing essentially rookie mistakes and rookie decisions from John Harbaugh, to the point now where it's like, does John Harbaugh know he's the head coach of this team and can say, hey, if I want Derrick Henry in the game, Derrick Henry's going to be in the game? It just feels like he's delegating out, and that's what he does. You say it best. He's a CEO type of coach, where he's not an offensive mind, not a defensive mind. But at some point, as a CEO, you have to step in and do what's best for your company. And your company, if you're John Harbaugh, is the Baltimore Ravens. And if you're the CEO type of coach, you have to override that rotation and say, hey, Derrick Henry's the one that's been getting the job done. Keaton Mitchell's been awesome this entire year. He didn't have it against the Patriots, and that's okay. But it's not okay that the Ravens essentially left their chances of winning on the sideline over the last two drives of that game and let the Patriots sneak one out of Baltimore.
John, Johnny, John Boy, JH, Harbs, Harbaugh, John Harbaugh. I'm just going to say it this way, bruh. Your coaching legacy is on the line. If there was ever a time for you to just say, now is the time for me to have the best coaching experience for me and my staff ever, it is now. Steve Bisciotti, if you truly are saying you want to win and you're all about listening to the fan base and all the things, and you're upgrading the stadium and the stadium looks wonderful, and you want everybody to buy all of that and do all that and be one of those respected organizations, well, you need to look at both John and EDC. Not just John, because John is cooking and he fired a lot of his sous chefs, but he's the head chef. And EDC, he's the one that goes out there and gets all the fine grass-fed beef to go ahead and fill up the team. Right now, we're looking like a bunch of vegans with not a lot of punch and power. Okay? So with that said, yeah, this is a scenario where it's draw the line in the sand. Here we go. Let's play. Let's play some ball. And what does that look like? Are you playing ball to save your job and save it in a sense of you're playing not to win and you're playing to lose, meaning that your decisions are very much walking on thin ice type thing? Or are you like, you know what? If I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out. And we're gonna do this and we're gonna do it together and make up a game plan of executing of in-game adjustments that are worthy of saying, look, everybody thought I was out, but I ain't done just quite yet. And my staff, I believe in them. They believe in me. Here's how we are going to do this together.
Big time. I agree completely with that. And something interesting, the Ravens have been in this situation before now. Remember in 2007, the Ravens got rid of Brian Billick. The year before that, the Ravens made it to the division round. I think they were the 2 seed or the 1 seed. Faced off against the Colts at home against Peyton Manning. 5 field goals, won them the game. You know, Steve McNair, rest in peace, was the quarterback at the time. So the Ravens were riding high the year before, and then the following year, I believe they went 5-11, missed the postseason, and they made that change. Similar situation here where they made it to the division round, lost. This year upcoming, they most likely will miss the postseason unless something miraculous happens. And now people are calling for the job. So it's not unlike, Steve Bisciotti to make a change after postseason success the year before. Each coach only has one Super Bowl into their name. I don't think that Brian Billick got as long of a leash that John Harbaugh has had. I mean, he's been here for 18 years and only has one championship to show for it. No Super Bowl appearances besides that one win against the 49ers all those years ago. So very interesting to see what Steve Bisciotti decides to do. QG made another point. Eric DeCosta also shares some of this blame. The trenches were not built with him at the helm. If you had to decide, if you were in Steve Bisciotti's brain, is John Harbaugh the one to go, or are you giving Eric DeCosta another year of this and then potentially making the move as well? It's kind of strange if you put in a new coach. Eric DeCosta is going to be a part of hiring that coach. If you get rid of the GM, the next GM that comes in will have to be okay with the coaches on display. So a little more difficult for Steve Bisciotti to navigate it that way. But what are your thoughts about that?
So just by his style, he likes continuity and he wants to have everybody on the same page. So if that's the case, then if John goes, I think Eric needs to go too, because you set the table, you got the guy to cook it, and now you're in a position, if you're Steve, where you're like, all right, I want a brand new restaurant. I want it all new. So I'm going to bring in a whole new construction team. What is the fresh ideas that they're looking at? Because yeah, you're a pair. You came in, you've done it together. And if you think that it's okay to be status quo, then go ahead, keep Eric DeCosta. If you want to really think outside the box and all right, cool, let's bring in a fresh-minded, what is a different way of doing things, because the compensatory pick thing ain't happening. Just because you have a ton of draft picks, okay, great. You talked to Penn State Business School and showed them some cute stories. Ooh, boy. You go on a couple podcasts, you act clandestine like you were part of the inner workings up in Langley. All right, well, see if the Commanders want you for a position. And then you can go over to Langley and talk to them. They're getting a new stadium. What's up? The problem is, Steve Bisciotti needs to be in a position where I want a guy that can come in, have fresh, good, strong, solid ideas, and he and the head coach are in lockstep. Just as Ozzie and Brian was, just as Ozzie and literally John / now EDC and John was. Now, what does it look like moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting conversation point because clearly, yes, it's not all on John Harbaugh. Clearly, Eric DeCosta deserves blame for this as well. And if I was Steve Bisciotti, I would probably I'd probably be a different Steve Bisciotti Q. I'd probably move on from Harbaugh, but then give Eric DeCosta one last chance to prove that he can change. And what I mean by that is, like you talked about with the draft picks, we're done with the comp picks. That'd be my message. We're done with the comp picks. Go out there, sign a guy to a 3-year, $35 million deal, and get rid of that 4th or 3rd round comp pick. I do not care about it, because you know what? That's great for a younger team. It's great for a team with a quarterback on a rookie contract. We want to throw guys in there. And by the way, draft picks are still good for teams that have star quarterbacks on big deals, because you need those rookie contracts to help bring the cost down at certain positions, but not when you're bringing in like 12 guys a year in your draft class. And we know this Ravens team loves their UDFAs too, so you got to always keep open like a roster spot or two. So it's essentially like sometimes a 10 to 13 player draft class every year that is taking up roster spots, and young talent is good. It's one of the main reasons why Baltimore has been able to stay competitive for so many years in a row, for the most part, is because they just move from roster to roster, even with a bunch of turnover, and they have young guys ready to step up when a veteran leaves. But to me, I'm not saying trade away every single draft pick you own. I'm not going down that route, mainly because I know that's not what the Ravens will do. But I mean, I had talked about it when the Ravens picked all those guys. They had 11 draft picks this past year. And I said then and there, 11 draft picks are not making this roster. Go trade those picks for somebody, package those picks and move up in the draft to go get a higher selection for a guy, make your assets work for you. And what's happening now? Well, their last draft pick, Garrett Dellinger, is now on the Browns. He didn't even make the final roster. Both their rookie corners are on IR. And honestly, you had to wonder if one or both those guys would have been cut during final cutdown day had they stayed healthy. There's just not enough room for that. So at this point, like, the comp picks have worked for Baltimore for years, and I get that, but things change and reasons change to do things or not do things. And I think the reason now to not do it is you can't play the formula anymore to say, hey, we're just going to let that comp pick deadline expire in May after the draft, and then we'll go bargain bin hunting to see what we can get. Go out there and sign the second best guard. Go out there and sign the 3rd best pass rusher. Give them a hefty deal. You have cap space. Hopefully, when this Lamar Jackson thing with the $70+ million cap hit is over, you're going to have even more cap space. Use that to your advantage. Play for the now while also knowing you can draft well in the future. That, to me, would be my message.
I like it. I agree completely. We're going to talk a little bit more about this because this is a nice conversation. Take a quick break, come back and talk a little bit more about front office changes, coaching changes, maybe no changes, which will get Ravens fans very upset, but we'll talk about it anyway here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing. And with Car Gurus, you get the confidence you deserve. They cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on the cars you want. Because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal. And Car Gurus makes that whole process simple by giving you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else, so you can shop the way you want. Use Car Gurus deals ratings to compare cars quickly without having to guess whether the price is fair. In-depth vehicle reviews help you understand what ownership actually looks like, not just how the car looks online. Having verified dealerships and upfront pricing makes the whole thing feel transparent and stress-free. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any major online automotive marketplace, you'll always find the best deal. Shop the way you want with tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at cargurus.com. That's CARGURUS.com, cargurus.com. Welcome back, Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Again, we're here twice a week. Today, we're here, and then we'll have another show after the Ravens-Packers game on Saturday. Not Sunday, Saturday. So great to be with you guys talking Ravens football. Again, you can catch us here twice a week. Also catch Kevin on the Locked On Ravens podcast 5 days a week, including the weekends, depending on the news source. So if you want Ravens news, definitely tune in to the Locked On Ravens podcast so you get that news. Tell your friends about it if they're Ravens fans and want to get information fast, easy, and under 30 minutes, maybe a little over 30 minutes, depending on the rant. You guys might get a little bit of that on the upcoming show. Hint, hint. But we talk Ravens football here. Ravens have a decision to make in the offseason, regardless of what happens here, unless by some miracle of fate, the Ravens hoist the Lombardi Trophy in February. Steve Bisciotti is going to have to take a good look at his football program and decide what's best for this football team. We talked about John Harbaugh being on the hot seat. Q made an excellent point about whether or not Eric DeCosta should be in tow with that, because it's true. I mean, Eric DeCosta does share some of the blame here. I think that is something that hasn't been talked about as much with this front office. Let's talk about where this ends up, because again, Kevin, you mentioned it, the $70 million cap hit is upcoming for Lamar Jackson. If he loses his GM, if he loses his head coach in a one fell swoop, Lamar Jackson is pretty much in a chaotic situation and will have a decision to make for himself based on what he wants to do in the future. Do you think that Lamar Jackson will welcome a change like this? Maybe a guarantee from the owner himself, say, we're going to get this right, and we're going to get this right fast. Or is there a little trepidation on the hands of the young QB where he thinks, well, maybe Baltimore isn't the place for me for my future's sake, because we don't even have a GM or head coach to really count on or lean on that I have confidence in to get the job done?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Lamar would welcome it, like not in terms of like he wants those guys gone. I don't know that. I'm just saying he would welcome the fact that, in my opinion, he would have input. Like if I'm Steve Bisciotti, my message to Lamar would be, if they move on from Harbaugh and DeCosta, would be, look, Lamar, we're gonna have you involved in this process. We're gonna let you like not take the reins, but be like a major part of the decision-making process. And I think Lamar would welcome that. Like, I think Lamar would be like, okay, like you value my opinion. And I think that the Ravens have shown Lamar they value his opinion. Like I think with Todd Monken giving him freedom in the offense, something he did not have under Greg Roman, and some of those things. Like I think that Lamar, essentially what Eric DeCosta said, it's essentially what, like a stakeholder thing. I think that was DeCosta who said something along those lines. So like Lamar is involved in those processes, but to the same token, I also think Lamar would be involved in the process to move on from those guys in the first place. Where, if Steve Bisciotti was weighing making those decisions, and again, like the final decision does come down to Steve, I assume Steve does value Lamar's opinion. And, we've all had the conversation. Me personally, I would choose Lamar over John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta if it came down to it. And so I think that the messaging with Lamar, if Steve is very transparent and says, hey, Lamar, we're going to give you the option and the opportunity to be a major part of our process here to find our next head coach, to find our next GM or head coach or GM and GM, I think that would resonate with Lamar, because he can throw his visions on the table and say, this is what I need, this is what I want. And, again, like Steve would make those final decisions, but just to have Lamar be a part of that process, I think would go a long way with Lamar. And we've heard in the past, whether it be, it expands to leagues, right? Whether it be the NFL, the MLB, the NBA, like a lot of these star players do have influence in the fact that, like, hey, this is what my vision is for this team. How does it align with your vision of this team? And it's a very good, healthy process. So I don't think Lamar would request a trade out of Baltimore if they move on from John Harbaugh. My hot take is that it's more likely he does that if John Harbaugh stays. But again, I don't know that for sure. Again, like that's just speculation, pure speculation on my part. But we have to remember Lamar does have a no trade clause. So that's something you have to factor into those conversations. Would he waive that to move on if Harbaugh stays? I don't know. But it's a question that I have seen people asking on social media. So the conversation is being brought up.
Ooh, boy, yeah. I mean, those are angles that I guess in my mind I didn't necessarily consider, the Lamar / John relationship / even Eric DeCosta, kind of vibe. What are those guys going to do? Because they are looking at a franchise quarterback, and I I don't know if Steve would necessarily consult with Lamar to say, hey, listen, I'm looking at these guys. If they stay, are you okay with that? Or if they go, who do you want in? I don't know. I don't see, Steve Bisciotti necessarily asking a player, even though it is Lamar Jackson, such a weighted question. Maybe he might talk with him and somewhat consult with him, but I don't know. I don't see that in the cards. It's not out of realm of possibilities, but I don't see that in the cards. And I just think that overall for Lamar, I don't even know if he would want to have that necessarily weighted input. I think, if Steve moves in a different direction, yeah, he probably would be, you know, inclined to let Lamar know, but not necessarily, well, Lamar, because of you, or hey, what do you think? I think it's more along the lines of like, look, this is what I am deciding on doing for my franchise. Um, from a aspect of paying you, yeah, the next GM, he will be in contact with you. I know you guys are going to work out a deal. However, those conversations are said, but yeah, I don't think that this is going to be a scenario where Lamar has quote unquote that much power per se in the grand scheme of it all.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards you, Q, in that regard. I don't think Lamar Jackson even wants that type of power. I think he's really, from what we've heard from others and people within the organization, he's the guy that just wants to come in there and win football games and head on home. Maybe he needs to take that approach if he wants to be the guy that many say that he could be. But I think overall right now, he's just the guy that wants to go out there and win games. Maybe he believes John Harbaugh is not the guy. Maybe he doesn't. As Kevin mentioned, we don't really know that. But if the decision needs to be made, Lamar needs to put that hat on and say, hey, what's best for me? He's put himself, whether he meant to or not, in a very intriguing situation in which he'll need to decide whether or not he signs a contract, because the Ravens cannot keep Lamar Jackson in the contract he is in now. That $70 million cap hit is going to be crushing for anybody to try and mortgage themselves to be a playoff contender or Super Bowl contender or whatever you think the Ravens could be. I think Lamar Jackson's contract has to be the focal point. We know they tried to do something for him last offseason. Nothing got done. We'll see what happens this time around. But whoever the GM is, they'll need to get done. And speaking of GM, one thing to note, the Ravens have never let go of a GM. The Ravens have had two GMs. Ozzie Newsome, he let those powers go and handed them off, the keys, if you will, to Eric DeCosta, and it's just been that. It's been Ozzie and EDC. EDC's been here since the beginning. Ozzie's been here since the beginning. He's been here in some way, shape, or form since the induction of the Ravens to the Baltimore faithful. So it'll be very interesting to see how this team navigates it. As someone who's analyzed, watched the team for all these years, I don't know. I don't know what this team will look like with the new GM. It feels like, and I said this when the Ravens hired Eric DeCosta, that there won't be much of a shift, much of a change in dynamic, because Ozzie Newsome was the one that brought up Eric DeCosta. You see some trickling differences in the way they approach the draft and how they attack the draft. Ozzie Newsome was never really a guy that attacked the wide receiver position very much. So he loved the Alabama guys. Eric DeCosta, not so much. But for the most part, their philosophies are in line. So it'll be very interesting to see how this may change if they go that route. Now, again, we don't know if Eric DeCosta is going to get fired. We don't even know if John Harbaugh is going to get fired. But you got to assume, with the way things go, you give Eric DeCosta one more shot at it. Hey, now you're the guy that hired the new head coach, and now that new head coach has to deal with the guy that didn't hire him. Continuity is the key, as Q mentioned. I'm not sure if that's really what's going to be best for this team moving forward. So, Q, you may be onto something. If one guy goes, so does the other. So we'll take another quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Ravens versus Packers game, because when it's all said and done, the Ravens are still in the thick of it. In Week 17, they have a shot to be a part of the playoff journey if the Steelers were to lose. But first, they have to get that win against the Packers. We'll touch on what they need to do to get that done next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Welcome back, Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Final segment with myself, Kevin, and Kadri Ismail. We are talking Ravens football. Let's get the spirits jumping a little bit. I feel like we've been a little down on the dumps, talking about people losing their jobs and the Ravens don't have a shot to make the playoffs. Well, let's talk about as if the Ravens are in this thing. They're all in. They're taking away the outside noise, and they're focusing on the Ravens getting the job done against the Packers and putting pressure on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Jordan Love, the quarterback for the Packers was not a full participant in practice, dealing with the concussion, limited. You've seen that before, people, and did not play. They just shot the Packers maybe without Jordan Love as well. Let's talk about this offense as if Jordan Love was a QB. Q, what are you seeing from this Packers team this year that makes you believe that they may have a shot to do some damage in this contest?
They meaning the Ravens versus the Packers?
Yeah. No, the Packers
Oh.
doing damage against the Ravens defense.
Got you. So Malik Willis, I'm not sure. I know he was a little banged up too. So that's where the X factor comes in, because what I saw against the Bears, if he plays, is boy, he's a poor man's version of Lamar Jackson. He's got an arm and he's got some legs, and he ran the Packers offense to its fullest. It didn't look like they were kind of taking anything away. They got some receivers that like to catch the ball down the field on some deep balls. And I know that from that deep ball aspect of things, we saw, what Nate Wiggins, we saw Marlon Humphrey, we saw Awuzie, although hopefully he will be back. But we saw those guys give up some big plays against the Steelers as well as this previous game too. So, I think Green Bay, shoot, they're fighting to figure out their playoff lives and all the things too. So in my mind, I think they're going to be, all hands on deck. And shoot, right now, what they I think sitting at the 7th seed, and I know that bigger picture wise, even though they do have some injuries, I think offensively against the Ravens defense, if in fact Malik Willis does play, or I just don't think Jordan Love, it would be right for him to play. But they're kind of depleted in the tight end room. I know that Kirkpatrick, he had ruptured his Achilles non-contact injury, and basically again, the running back aspect, I know Jacobs has been a little bit banged up, but he could run the ball, and they got a good enough running back tandem. So I think that matchup wise, it's going to be a tough one for the Ravens, and they better be like, if you thought Drake Maye was a tough challenge, this is going to be even a tougher challenge because it's going to be up in Green Bay, and I promise you, like, Green Bay isn't some slouch of a team on their home field.
Yeah. I mean, Green Bay, so there is context to some of Green Bay because of the injuries that they've suffered. So obviously they're a top 10 defense in both rushing and passing, but with some of the injuries, specifically Micah Parsons, you got to wonder how effective. And again, like, Green Bay's coming into this game very mad at what happened to them against the Bears on Saturday. And, the Ravens are also coming in very mad about what happened to them on Sunday against against New England. So now with the Ravens facing off against the Packers, I am curious because the Packers, in terms of their rushing offense, like you mentioned, Josh Jacobs is a little banged up. Emmanuel Wilson has run the ball really well in a backup role for them. But they're wide receivers, like Romeo Doubs has been a guy for them that has been all right. I mean, he's had 662 yards and 6 touchdowns. Christian Watson has, I think, played really well for them, but I don't think
he's a deep ball maven.
Yeah, but he's
a deep ball maven.
Is he still? I have to check up on the Packers injury report because
he hurt his shoulder.
Yeah, he had the shoulder thing. I'm trying to see. So Christian Watson, they have a lot. They have a lot of injuries, but he did participate fully in practice on Tuesday. It's the estimation, at least. So, I mean, their did not participate list for Green Bay includes defensive linemen and includes corners. Zach Tom, who's one of their offensive linemen, he didn't practice. Christian Welch, who has been on this Ravens team like 15 times, he did not participate either. So, again, the big story is the quarterbacks, right? Malik Willis and Jordan Love both being limited in practice, but even still, I think Baltimore, if they can get Chidobe Awuzie back, who I think that they sorely missed in that game against New England. And we know that he was a limited participant in practice with his foot injury. Hopefully that is good news for him. You're going to have to be relying, if you're Green Bay, on guys like Dontavian Wicks and guys like Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. And I think that if you can take that aspect away, and especially the deep ball, which Baltimore, again, doesn't like to get beat deep, I think for Green Bay, they're going to have to start to run the ball effectively, which, again, they haven't been a great yards per carry team this season, as I mentioned. So I wonder if that's the formula for Green Bay. It's, get the pass game going and let the run game complement that. Usually teams start off with their running game, let that open up their passing game. For Green Bay, I think the key for them will be the opposite.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of that injury report, though, Packers are a little banged up. I mean, to say the least. 20 players on the injury report for the Green Bay Packers on Tuesday. If you keep them square at home, there's 52 players on the football team. That's all. We're nearing the halfway point for this team, and 5 of those 20 players were full participants. The rest were either limited or did not participate in the practice. Of course, this is just a walkthrough for the Packers and the Ravens, so these are estimations, but that tells you how banged up this Packers team is heading into a game that, as Kevin mentioned, is going to be featuring 2 teams that are not very happy about the outcomes of their contest last week and will need to do their best to win the game in order to stay relevant in the postseason chase. Let's talk about this Ravens offense. We talked about Lamar Jackson potentially not playing in this game, needing to rely on Tyler Huntley, but the run game was the big thing that everyone was so focused on, the lack thereof, from John Harbaugh to key in on Derrick Henry. Kevin, do you expect John Harbaugh to kind of say, "Oh, let's make sure we get Derrick Henry involved early and often here. Let's make that not a topic of conversation in this contest"?
Yeah, I do. And again, Green Bay's run defense has been good this season, but that does have context to the guys who are missing games for them currently, with, again, Micah Parsons being the guy that does a little bit of everything, and that's a big loss, and I hope Micah gets well soon. But, the Ravens are going to be avoiding him, and, for them, it's a big loss for Green Bay's defense. So I do expect the Ravens to try to run this ball early and often. And look, if Tyler Huntley's in the game, that should be the formula anyway. I mean, you need to establish your run game, because I think that what Huntley did very well is, again, in limited throws, he was able to just get the job done. And that's what he was supposed to do. Like, again, I thought he played well, but you don't want to make this a game where Tyler Huntley throws like 35 times. Like, you don't want to make it that kind of game. You want to have it be, at the very minimum, a balanced effort between your run game and your pass game, where I mentioned Green Bay. I think their formula, your pass game opens up your run game. For Baltimore, I think it has been and has to continue to be, your run game opens up your pass game, particularly your play action. And again, if the offensive line can step up the way that they did for the most part against the Patriots in Week 16, you're able to do that. I know this whole rotation stuff. The Ravens are a team that doesn't like to listen to outside noise. They just do what they do in the building, and that is what it is. We're in unprecedented times in the John Harbaugh era where, John Harbaugh hasn't been under this much pressure since that 2018 season when Joe Flacco went down. Lamar Jackson came in and essentially saved his job. So maybe John Harbaugh has to say, man, I got to save a little face here and run our star players into the ground. But that, to me, would be him not going down with the ship. That would be him changing something. Whereas the mindset for me for Harbaugh has been, it just feels like he's going to do what he wants. Doesn't, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But he's just going to do what he feels like he feels is the best for the team. And, isn't as open to change as I think a lot of people would like him to be, whether that be with offensive line changes or coordinator changes or whatever it has been with him. So I am hoping that maybe this can be the first time with all the pressure that's mounting on him where he will say, yeah, that rotation thing, we're done with that. Derrick, go take this ball 30 times and do what you do, because I need you, not the team. I need you, Derrick. Derrick Henry, come in and save my job this time. I think that's what that's what John Harbaugh said to Lamar in 2018 and said, hey, Lamar, can you come and save my job a little bit? Now I think that has to be Derrick Henry's conversation now.
He better have a sub conversation with Faalele and Voorhees. Yo, fellas, listen. I just asked Derrick to save my job. If I go, y'all go. I'm going to make sure y'all go. Y'all like y'all job? Huh? I'm already a multi-millionaire. I'm going to get another job. Now, I already don't like Ben Cleveland. He's been suspended Somehow he's on the team because I don't like him, but I like y'all better than him. Okay. Daniel, you got booed at home a couple times, bro. Okay, Voorhees, they didn't cheer your name very loud either. Now, Pancake Pat, Charlie Kolar, when they're in the game, they be doing stuff because we can get to the outside if y'all don't mess it up. We saw what we did against New England. Pretend. Let's just pretend you could do better. You could do better. I'm talking to both of y'all. Look at me in the eye. So now all of a sudden they'd be looking at me in the eye. Oh my God, we got to play. And then they'll be motivated. They'll go out there and they'll play. And then Derrick Henry will be the star. Oh. And then Tyler Humphreys. Tyler Huntley will be excited and ecstatic. And if I'm Charlie and if I am Isaiah and even if I'm Mark, I'd be like, you know what we did in Chicago? We got the ball from you. We need you to give us the ball. Any questions? No? Good. All right, cool. Now we're going to block. But you need to give us the ball when it comes to throwing the ball. Don't be looking to the outside. Don't be looking all like, give us the ball. Okay? We good? Everybody? Great? Cool. Right? Then Tyler needs to go up to T. T, listen, bro. I know I'm not Lamar, bro. Listen. Here are the plays I want to run. Here are the plays that I have trouble with. Here's the game plan. Great. Now, tell Monken, love him, but if he can put me in great position by having certain guys in the game at certain times for certain key moments, like the ones that I'm listing out, bam, I'm your guy, and we can all save our jobs. Because you know what? When you the head coach is fired, that means everybody else is fired too.
Mm-hmm.
So let us all just kumbaya together and let's play some ball up in Green Bay. Boy, you know they're gonna be playing that dumb song. Doom, 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 doom. So I know I got some awesome veneers. I want to keep them suckers nice pearly white when I'm talking to our media with a victory. Talking about week 18 and Lamar going out there in week 18 because I'm going to be back on the sideline chilling. But for this week, Todd, T, bruh, I already got everybody talking to me. Now that I'm talking to y'all, we all going to get a victory. Break on 3. 1, 2, 3, break.
Not Cancun on 3.
Mini
Not
rant.
Cancun on 3.
Mini rant for sure. Well, I'm gonna let you guys go, but before I do, I have one question for you. I'm not gonna have you do predictions, but I'm gonna have a little twist. Do you think the Ravens will be playing for the AFC North Championship in week 18? Kevin, I'll start with you because I feel like I know Q's answer.
Well, I think I know Q's answer too, and I think my answer is going to be the same as Q. I'm not going to speak for Q, but I personally am going to say no. I do not think the Ravens will be playing for the AFC North Championship in week 18. I'm going to go a little opposite day here. I think that, a lot of people are having doubts about the Ravens beating the Packers. I think the Ravens will win. Like, I personally believe the Ravens are going to beat the Packers this week.
Nice.
I do not have confidence in the Browns beating the Steelers. And the Ravens put themselves in this situation. They are the ones that they had their own destiny in their hands and they faltered. And so now you need, everybody's going to be glued to that TV on Sunday, watching Shedeur Sanders and hoping that Myles Garrett can get 15 sacks on Aaron Rodgers and set a sack record that'll never be broken. But I can't see it. So maybe this is my attempt to reverse jinx it, but I think the Ravens will not be playing for the North Championship, not because they're going to lose, but because the Steelers are going to win.
What say you, Q?
No. Marlon Humphrey gives up big touchdown pass. Packers win. Tyler Luke tries to kick up in Packer land, stubs his toe. Boom. Frozen Tundra gets the better of him. Ball comes up short. Sorry, Steve. And yeah, we are sitting here like, you know what? What are we going to Pittsburgh for? Shoot, let's just play. Oh, my back. Because nobody's going to be playing for anything. Everybody's going to be injured. Now all of a sudden the phantom injury is going to be coming out even more.
And by the way, we did say that if the Browns beat the Steelers, we all will do the Shadur watch celebration on the squad show.
I'm ready.
So
I'm ready.
I am ready.
I got to make it happen.
Oh man, we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that it gets done. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say the Ravens will be playing for the AFC North Championship.
We need some positivity in here, so good.
Some positivity.
All right.
Ravens beat the Packers by 10. Browns shut out the Steelers without DK Metcalf, and Week 18 is here. That's my old prediction. Let's see what happens. Oh Lord, I don't know if it's going to happen, but that's what I'm going to say. Just because it is the Ravens squad show, we want to see Week 18 come down to the wire. Of course, if it doesn't happen, it is nobody's fault but the Baltimore Ravens. But again, I want to appreciate everybody for tuning in. Lots of people active here on the chat. Lots of people, I'm sure, watching at home, and a lot of people listening wherever you get your podcast. So appreciate you guys for doing show. We will be back on Saturday after the Ravens hopefully take care of business against the Green Bay Packers. Until then, I want to wish you happy holidays for one. Christmas is upcoming. Hopefully you guys spend some time with your family, get lots of snacks and dinner and presents and all that good stuff. Everyone have a Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we will see you on Saturday.